And welcome back to the Amazon ad studio. I am so excited, you guys, for our next guest. I've been looking forward to this conversation all day. I've learned so much from everyone. I've spoken to a lot of people this week, and I know this next conversation is going to be riveting, full of tips, insights, wisdom, not just for me, but for you as well. It's going to be extremely valuable as we try to balance, if you will, our work and our family lives. Joining me now is Katherine Sellery, the brilliant mind behind Conscious Parenting Revolution. Katherine is ready and waiting to share her expertise when it comes to forging your own journey towards conscious parenting and a fulfilling career. Katherine, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and talk about this with you.
We're so grateful that you made the journey here to New York City to be on our set here at Amazon Ads to talk about your company, your brand. So for people who may not be familiar, what is Conscious Parenting Revolution?
So it's the revolution behind, there are so many of our problems with our kids that we can prevent. Transgenerational trauma affects people forever. And so why don't we just get to the front side of it? It actually is pretty easy if you just know how to do it. And so I want to help people know how to do it.
Okay, and you work with individuals in all sectors, not just advertising, but pretty much you name it, you've done it.
Totally.
What is the first step that parents can take, Katherine?
So the first step is recognizing that 75% of behavioral disruptions are retaliation, rebellion, and resistance. The 3 R's. So 75% of the 3 R's. So if we could prevent the 3 R's, we prevent 3 out of 4 problems. So what causes the 3 R's? It's a power over approach. Do as you're told, because I said to, so go to your room. It's the failure to see children as people too. To acknowledge that even though you're finding it difficult to deal with the resistance, if you take a minute, if you pivot, if you see your children as people too, they have a side, they have a perspective. And so learning how to listen and listen through resistance can prevent all kinds of problems. And this applies, by the way, to human beings in general. I think you could probably imagine that. Yes.
Fascinating. So what was the brainchild behind this? Like, what made you wake up one day and say, you know what, I need to create something that's going to enact change?
So I had children. And my husband and I were both professionals and good at our jobs, and we were deer in headlights. I just remember the two of us looking at each other like, what do we do now? And we had all of this sort of typical stuff, go to your room, 1, 2, 3 magic. If you don't, this is what I'm gonna do to you, rewards and punishments. And it just didn't resonate, didn't feel right. And I also knew from my own family of origin, watching the dynamics in my own family, that there were so many hurt feelings. And as the adult self, I looked back and thought, God, I think a lot of that could have been eliminated with some skills, just basic skills, stuff anybody can learn.
So talk to us more about these skills. Because I know everyone at home's going, okay, cool. How do we even start this conversation with our kids? And just to clarify too, before we get into that, it's all kids. So it's not like toddlers. This is not for like high schoolers. It's for any parent with children.
It really is. I mean, I have some clients right now who are really concerned about the dynamics between their older kids. So it even is breakdown. I do a lot of healing and reconciliation. I'm trained as a mediator. My background allows me to bring just any kind of mediation skills that you would think of in a corporate setting and any breakdown into the family setting. And to be, and the corporate setting. I mean, I have a leadership effectiveness background, so it's really about leadership in every domain and recognizing that we can schedule our problems, right? Imagine that, you know, I'm gonna have a problem when something happens. I go to drop them off at a friend's house and then I go to pick them up and it's hard to get them out of the house. I'm sure you've had that problem, yes, right? Or you go and drop them at the club and you can't get them to leave. And then you find yourself embarrassed in front of a whole group of people trying to get them to leave because you're exhausted and it's time to go. That's a problem you knew was coming. So schedule the conversation long before you get into the problem zone. So that's part of the magic, is just schedule your problems when it's convenient for you.
I like that. So let's break this down a little bit more, Katherine. This is fascinating. So schedule your problems, right? Now, is this scheduling them with yourself, having a meeting with your kids?
Having a meeting with your kids.
Okay.
Yeah, so just think of them as one more conversation that's important to you, so important that you want to schedule it with your child. Yeah, so you know we're going to go on this flight in a few days. I've got some concerns about the airplane ride. I was wondering if we could have a conversation about this. how's this afternoon for you? You know, Mom, I've got my favorite show on TV at 4, but I could work with you after that. Terrific. Why don't we meet at 4:30? You know, something along those lines. And then have your conversation about all the worries that you have about this thing that's happening in 2 or 3 days. Isn't that better?
Yeah, you're already making my blood pressure go down because I have little kids, as you know, and it's one of those things where sometimes you're like, and you feel the anxiety bubbling. So I'll give you an example. The other day we went to my 3-year-old's friend's birthday party.
Right.
And it was at a painting place.
Yeah.
And of course, my 2 kids were running around the place and knocking things down, and it was just very anxietous. And you mentioned like embarrassing and things like that. So for someone out there maybe with younger kids, and they go, well, I struggle because my kids are younger.
Yes.
Would you say that's an excuse and you still can have those conversations?
Oh, absolutely. No, it's extraordinary that I think parents just underestimate how willing kids are to collaborate with you. And if you give even a pre-verbal child an opportunity to communicate, they're already communicating. You just didn't pick up on it. So this is a chance to really establish deep connection, because everyone needs to have their side seen, heard, and understood from their perspective. Everyone.
Yeah. So let's shift now a little bit to advertising. We're here at Advertising Week, and one of the pain points we often hear from parents who are here at this event is that they struggle with this work-life balance, if you will.
Right.
They're very involved in their careers. Most people who are in advertising work very long hours. They want to achieve a certain level of success oftentimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that comes at the expense of their children. So what I often hear, and we've been out and about today asking people this topic, you know, at hand, and they say, well, how do you find that balance? How do you become successful, especially women? How do I become successful in this advertising space, but also be a good mom to my children?
Absolutely. So I think that one of the things that you have to remember is negative attention is better than no attention. So if you're experiencing what you would call, you know, negative attention, like your kids are acting out, they're doing things that you know they know better, and that may be their way to signal to you that they have underlying unmet needs. Now, you may want to get mad because people want to get mad when they're inconvenienced or embarrassed by their kids. And I would just say, take a deep breath, kind of put that on. You can always get mad later. Just put it aside for a minute, right? You can always go back. And in the meantime, just imagine that there's an underlying unmet need that hasn't come out into the open. So let's presume that it's negative attention is better than no attention, and that the need is for attention. And you're saying, but I'm so busy. How am I going to find time for my kids? Schedule it. Again, you might not have time today, or maybe not even tomorrow, but maybe Wednesday or Thursday, or there's a day coming up. Schedule an appointment. Even if it's a Zoom call with your kids from the office. Schedule it. Have them get a little snack ready for that phone call. Plan something, because then they know they matter, you care about them, they can admire you for your success. They can be proud of you for your success. I don't ever recommend people step it down, but I do think there are opportunities to connect in ways that you haven't thought of yet.
And I love how you talk about, obviously, conscious. It's part of your brand, right?
Yes.
The conscious parenting revolution. I was speaking to someone the other day, and it was very fascinating. And he was sharing a story about how he was on a business call and was very busy. He was knee deep in this call, right? Very important call. And his daughter was saying, Dad, you know, and I was trying to get the dad's attention. And he was like, yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
And then he says, you know, he looked up and realized that the daughter needed help with something and she was trying to do it herself.
Yeah.
And he had that moment of like, oh, I feel awful. You know, I hear my daughter just needed something very simple, but yet I was too busy for her. I feel like that's a very common thing where sometimes we're not even consciously aware that we're on those calls and we say, yeah, hold on, or like, wait.
Right.
How do we become more aware, Katherine?
Well, I love that. It sounds like something in this gentleman caused him to stop and to just become aware of what was going on around him. And I think a lot of it is about choice. Like, I know that for, you know, some people, some of the time they can actually say to whoever they're on the phone with, would you mind just waiting for 1 minute? I just need to check in to find out if this is something I can handle easily or if I need to make an appointment. It's okay. Everybody, I mean, a lot of people have kids. A lot of people have compassion and understanding for the fact that we're all out there balancing, trying to get it right.
So let's talk about success stories.
Yeah.
I know you have numerous, but can you explain or share with us one success story that really, really hit home for you personally?
So, I love to talk about self-started behavioral change. So self-started behavioral change is a really different idea than I'll make you change your behavior because of what I'm going to do to you if you don't. So
Right.
rewards and punishments is based on that construct. It's that we change human behavior on the basis of making someone uncomfortable or taking away a treasured activity or something that they love. And on that basis, we get them to shift their behavior. But what we know from the research is what we get is retaliation, rebellion, and resistance most of the time. We may get a shift in behavior, but not because of the reasons we want. We want people to shift their behavior out of consideration and understanding for our feelings and needs, not because they're afraid of us or the power that we have over them, because as adults, we have power over children. But do we want to use power over to get a shift in behavior, right? This is a very thoughtful question, and it applies across all spectrums, not just parenting, but any organizational construct. So why would we want someone to change their behavior? Because they actually get like what's going on for me. And then they're saying, oh, Mom, I didn't know you were so busy. Look, I can come back in a little bit. Is 15 minutes okay? Could you imagine your children checking in with you to be considerate of the fact that you've got this whole other world that's happening and wondering when it would be a good idea? So I remember I had one client who had a little boy, and she was terrified of him eating candy and ice cream and all this sort of thing. And I was like, why? A lot of kids do this. A lot of adults do this. I mean, what's so worrying to you? And the father was a diabetic. So she was really freaked out that this was going to be a path for her child. And I'm like, well, have you shared something about what your husband goes through? Well, no, I haven't done that. I said, it's really important you do, so that it's not imaginary, but they can see that these are the real consequences of a blood sugar imbalance, that this is actually something in their bloodstream. And explain it, so that even though this little boy was under 5, he can understand. And then, honestly, it's hard to believe, but he would go to birthday parties and say, no, I don't eat ice cream. No, I mean, it was that self-started behavioral change that I'm talking about, that he managed his world. He didn't have to have somebody running after him all the time. That, to me, is our sweet spot, is when children choose to change their behavior because they choose it, because they get it, because they value their health in this case. And then they make the changes in order to live their value.
I love that. And Katherine, sometimes we just don't give our kids enough credit.
I agree.
We really don't.
Yeah, I know.
So we're here in October, midway
Yeah.
through, which is so hard to believe, and the holidays are right around the corner. Typically, for most people, it's a time when we're around families a lot more, and a lot of people either are more conscious or
Yeah.
a lot less because their mind is in 100,000 places. What do you typically see around this time?
Yeah, well, actually, funny you would say that, but yes, around the holidays, I think this is where multiple generations can gather together. And when that happens, you may find that someone in your family is maybe not as authentic, possibly not willing to speak about underlying unmet needs, or maybe doesn't even have the language for that. So they act in what we call behaviors, cues, clues, and sometimes we want to be in a knee-jerk reaction to someone's behavior, which I recommend we not do, and instead kind of recognize this is one of those where you can consciously say, wow, there's something coming up for me. And a part of me really wants to lash out at you for having said that or done that. And instead of that, I would make an appointment with that person and say, Mom or Dad, or, we really parent differently. I was wondering, would you be willing, and ask them that because it's considerate. Are you willing or not willing to have a conversation with me about some ideas, some things that I'm willing to share? My dad, I remember at 85, had this conflict with my 5-year-old when we came back to over the holidays. And I could sit between the two of them and I could say to my daughter, so you really feel misunderstood? Yes, Grandpa just started shouting at me, saying I was inconsiderate. I don't even know what he means. And I was like, Dad, you were really upset because she didn't come when you called her. Yes, she needs to learn to respect her grandpa. And Pia, from your perspective, you were just finishing your drawing. So each one could kind of understand the other one's mindset. And then I just said, you guys have had a breakdown. I hope you can work it out. And I left the room. And my dad chewed on that for a while. And then he said to me, honey, it's a better way.
Wow. Katherine, we're just scratching the surface.
We really are.
And we're out of time here on our set. But for people who want to get in touch with you, and I know there's going to be a lot because this is so incredibly important, most important, people need this information.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need the help. I mean, I personally have learned many things today just from this interview that I've never even
Yeah.
thought of, like scheduling a meeting makes a ton of sense, and I'm going to start incorporating that into my life.
Nice, beautiful.
How can our audience reach out to you?
Well, I actually have an Amazon best-selling book, 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point. And anyone can go to freeparentingbook.com and download that. It's my gift.
Wow. Well, Katherine Sellery,
Thank you.
thank you so
It was
much
so
for being
great.
here, CEO and founder of Conscious Parenting Revolution. Katherine, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.